Some more offseason musings today on Locked On Lightning, starting with who would your dream free agent be for the Tampa Bay Lightning in this 2025 free agency period?
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Lightning. I'm Josh Sperber, giving you all a big thank you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if your team is the Tampa Bay Lightning, then this is the show for you. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And a couple bets that you might want to start making might be on free agency. That, of course, starts after the Stanley Cup Finals. But before free agency does officially get going, let me give you a little scenario. You are the GM for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Open checkbook, no salary cap rules. Who are you signing? Take a look at some of the upcoming unrestricted free agents. Couple of restricted guys that I think could make good fits for the Tampa Bay Lightning as well. One, obviously the defenders are really the first place that I'm going to be looking. So with restricted free agents, guys like Evan Bouchard of the Edmonton Oilers might make a solid fit. Noah Dobson of the Islanders, two restricted free agents who I think would be real great fits in Tampa Bay. But again, I think the Lightning just really need a big time defender. I think that has to be their their number one target when it comes to free agency. Maybe Luke Hughes, another restricted free agent who I think could really help the Tampa Bay Lightning. But I mean, a lot of it, you can just kind of look at the contracts and the projected contracts that some of these guys might be getting and just eliminate them from the Lightning's potential signing because they're so against the salary cap. But we're just going to go with, no salary cap, the ideal signings for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And Evan Bouchard might be the best defender available on this free agency market. He has the most points of any free agent to hit the market. Big contract, cap hit of almost $4 million. And a solid defender on the right side at just 26 years old. So Bouchard, I think, someone that's kind of able to do it all and having a lot of success with his current team in Edmonton. I think he'd be just a great addition to Tampa Bay. As would Mitch Marner, I think that's someone that probably any team in the NHL is going to be talking about signing. He is likely going to be the biggest prize, getting probably the biggest contract of any free agent, 102 points in the offseason. At 27 years old, he had 20 more points than anyone else who was hitting the open market in terms of free agency. The Toronto Maple Leafs has had a couple of frustrating playoff exits in the last couple of years that Marner might no longer want to be a part of, despite the fact that he is playing for his hometown team. But I think he would be a huge get for Tampa. Putting him on that second line with Hagel and Cirelli would complete just two lines in the Lightning's top six that could be first lines on just about any team in the NHL. I mean, that would be quite a combination to have a first line of Gensel, Point, and Kucherov, then a second line of Hagel, Cirelli, and then Mitch Marner on that right side. I mean, that would be incredible for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Looking at some defenders, I definitely got my eye on a couple of the young defenders in this pool. Guys, as I mentioned, like Evan Bouchard, Neil Pionk would have been a good one to look at had he not already signed a deal with the Jets. Aaron Ekblad is an interesting choice. I would not even want to entertain that, considering the hits he had on Brandon Hagel. Don't want that. As much as you want a player as talented as he is on your team, do you want the extracurriculars that may or may not come with it? So that would be an interesting attempt for the Lightning at 29 years old. Ekblad, one of the more interesting players in this free agency discussion. One of the most interesting free agents, I think, though, is going to be Morgan Geekie from the Boston Bruins. I mean, I feel like of any of the guys that might be making multi-million-dollar contracts, the 27-year-old Morgan Geekie, whose younger brother Connor is on the Tampa Bay Lightning already, might be an interesting reunion to get Morgan Geekie for a cheaper deal. He'd be a solid, bottom six center. Maybe throw him on the wing. Maybe put him on the center, put Geekie on the right wing, as we've seen him play a couple of times over the course of the season. And Morgan might not be the biggest name in terms of some of these free agents, but he's a player that I think could help the Lightning, and putting him on the same team as his younger brother could certainly help the development of Connor Geekie as well. So that would be a name that I think the Lightning should take a very hard look at over the course of free agency. Ivan Provorov was a name that was talked about in trade rumors a whole lot. 28-year-old from the Columbus Blue Jackets, expected to make one of the bigger sums for any free agent defenseman in the NHL. Just a young, solid guy who could be the anchor of a whole defensive unit, as in a lot of ways he was for the surprising Blue Jackets over the course of the season. Again, the cap room might preclude him from coming to Tampa Bay, but that would be an interesting get. Vladislav Gavrikov for the Kings, someone else that I talked about in an earlier episode, and Ryan Lindgren, who was traded to the Colorado Avalanche from the New York Rangers earlier in the offseason. 27 years old, made $4.5 million last year, finished with 69 games played, 4 goals, and a total of 22 points. A young, kind of defensive-minded defenseman, definitely someone that I think the Lightning should entertain bringing back. According to Daily Faceoff, he is expected to get a bit less than he's making this year. So maybe the Lightning can convince an even bigger drop-off in pay, just to help out a potential contending team that Tampa has. Nate Schmidt is someone that I think the Lightning might be able to get for a bargain, though a really solid postseason that he's currently enjoying might inflate the 33-year-old's potential value, currently making less than $1 million on the Panthers salary cap. And those are the kind of players that I think the Lightning really just need to be looking at, since they're right against that salary cap. But I think if you look at the free agents available, if salary cap was not an obstacle, I think you're taking a look at, a couple of players. The Lightning, I think, could use another forward, could definitely use another solid defenseman to anchor that team. I'm probably looking at either Ivan Provorov or Evan Bouchard on defense if the Lightning were to add someone free of any cap restrictions. And then Mitch Marner would be a huge get for Tampa Bay. I think that would be an incredible swing if they could somehow get Mitch Marner on that team. Couple of free agents, though, that I'd like to see the Lightning bring back. Well, really just one. That's Yanni Gourde. I'd like to see the Lightning re-sign him, as he was a really solid addition towards the end of the season. Good two-way forward in the postseason, who really just made it difficult on whatever team he matched up against. I'd really like to see the Lightning bring him back, but I know I'm looking at some high-profile defensemen for the Tampa Bay Lightning to sign. So I'm going to go with Ivan Provorov. I think what he helped the Blue Jackets do defensively really played a big part in that almost miracle season that brought a Blue Jackets team with the tragic loss of their key player in the offseason. And Provorov's help on the defensive side played a big role in Columbus coming close to a playoff run. He's definitely someone I'd like to see on the Tampa Bay Lightning. And something else I'd like to see on the Tampa Bay Lightning, long playoff beard and a hat that says Stanley Cup champions. Taking a look at the Lightning core, some of their young players on their current team, just about how long do you think the Lightning's title window can last with their current core and some of their current top players? The NHL playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it is a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Which players are showing up in the biggest moments, and how could tracking their trends help you build your next bet? And how could a $200 in bonus bets add to the excitement? Because that's what you get if your first $5 bet hits. If you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time now to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. A couple of recent playoff exits might kind of complicate the Lightning's outlook when it comes to their title window and just how long that this current core has left in their chance to compete for the Stanley Cup. And for me, I look at one player on the Tampa Bay Lightning team that I think really defines their cup window, and that is Victor Hedman, the Lightning captain. When you look at the Lightning core, aside from Ryan McDonough, Hedman is the elder statesman, 34 years old, but still going strong on the ice. He averaged the most time on ice for Tampa Bay Lightning player and would have played the most minutes if he didn't miss a couple games due to injuries over the course of the season. Played hurt through the playoffs, so the warrior mentality is certainly still there for the Tampa Bay Lightning captain. But I think that his age and really his current contract might be the defining factor in the Tampa Bay Lightning's title window. Hedman's contract is expected to end after the 2028 season, the 2027-28 season. So 3 years left on Hedman's contract at $8 million a year. And when that contract expires, the Lightning captain will be 37 years old. Hedman currently 34 and will turn 35 in December. 3 assists in the postseason and a total of 66 points in 79 games in the regular season for Victor Hedman. And I don't want to just, announce that Victor Hedman is going to be, completely done with the NHL in 2028. I still think that he's a guy that is fit enough, is strong enough, and is talented enough to play maybe even into his 40s. I have that much belief in Victor Hedman as a hockey player. But I don't think it's off base to think that a 37-year-old Victor Hedman with an expired contract is going to want to retire. This, I believe, is going to be the last contract that Victor Hedman signs, which is a tough pill to swallow for a guy who has really defined Lightning hockey over the past 16, 17 years since He was a first-round draft pick by the Bolts back in 2009. And Hedman went immediately to the NHL. There's never been a season where he's played less than an average of 20 minutes a game on the ice. But I think that this current contract is going to be his last. And I think with Victor Hedman's potential retirement in 2028, I think that is what's going to end the current title window for this core for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And a couple other things also kind of have to happen for for the Tampa Bay Lightning to extend their title window. They'll have to re-sign Andrei Vasilevskiy, who becomes an unrestricted free agent a year before Victor Hedman does. Same thing with Nikita Kucherov, whose contract is expiring in another 2 years after the 2026 to 2027 season for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So those are two players I think that are a big enough part of this Tampa Bay Lightning core that, regardless of Hedman's age, you can't, if the Tampa Bay Lightning can't contend without Nikita Kucherov and or Andrei Vasilevskiy. You've got one of the best, if not the best offensive player in the league, one of the best, if not the best goaltenders in the league. You just need those guys on your team. As I think they're a defining part of the Lightning's Cup chances. The rest of the Lightning core is really locked up until after 2029, and that's when I think things might start to get a little bit murky for Tampa Bay, and you'll, of course, have to rely on some of the younger players that might be coming up over the course of this season. By then, Connor Geekie, I think, will be well established. Hopefully, Max Crozier will have carved himself out a nice little niche in the Tampa Bay Lightning system, because Lightning certainly have, as I've talked about, some young players that I think can make an impact this coming season for Tampa Bay. But when you look at the Lightning core, 2029 is when a lot of those contracts are going to be ended. By 2029, Nikita Kucherov will have become a free agent. Nick Paul will be a free agent in 2029. Victor Hedman, obviously, the main focus for that. And Andrei Vasilevskiy will be a free agent after the 27 to 28 season. Like Victor Hedman, he's got another 3 years left on his contract. So, I mean, you look at those players, and Nick Paul might not be a franchise pillar, but he's certainly an important piece of this Tampa Bay Lightning team. And I also forgot to mention that by then, Ryan McDonagh will be a free agent. This coming season is the last year on the 2-year contract that he is currently playing under. So you don't know what McDonagh is going to do after that next contract. He was very adamant in the post-game interview, in the kind of exit interviews at the end of the season, that he wanted to end his career in Tampa Bay. He wanted to come back to the Lightning. It's where he's loved playing in his pro career. But another guy that, as well as he's playing in year 35, age 35, I should say, you don't know how much longer he's going to be going. McDonagh might still be on a string of 1-year contracts by 2028, 2029, or he could have been long retired. I mean, those are two guys that, unfortunately, not by their play on the ice, but just by their age, that you're going to have to start looking that they're potentially looking at retirement. Those are the top two left defensemen for the Lightning right now, and arguably the top two defensemen entirely on Tampa's team. So I think that the Lightning should very much be placed in the Stanley Cup conversation right now. I think that they definitely have some work to do, need some guys in free agency, need some of the younger players to step up once they get the call. But the Lightning are definitely title contenders right now. I don't think this is a rebuilding situation that, calls for a strip down of the entire team to try and tear up the floorboards and find a way for this team to contend. I think this is a team that can compete in the postseason with the guys that they have right now, regardless of what's happened in the first couple rounds. or the last couple rounds that they've played in the postseason. But this is a Lightning team that is certainly a playoff contender right now. And I think, hopefully with some fewer injuries going into the playoffs next season, maybe they'll put up a better fight in the first round. This is a team that you have to expect is going to make the playoffs and might need a couple extra pieces to become a full-fledged Stanley Cup contender. But I think as long as Victor Hedman is under contract with the Tampa Bay Lightning and healthy, I think the Lightning have a chance to pick up that Stanley Cup for a third time under John Cooper and a fourth time in franchise history. And the final segment of today's show will be back to higher or lower, talking about the Lightning's fourth line and the goaltenders. And we'll start with Andrei Vasilevskiy, who I think it's going to be harder to go higher on. So we're going higher or lower for one last time. We did all the defensive lines, top three offensive lines over the past week. We'll have some more of it tomorrow, talking about the trade acquisitions. But for today, we're going to go through the fourth line offense as well as the Tampa Bay Lightning goalies. And we're going to start with Zemgus Girgensons, who is a tough one to adjudicate. I'm going to go with higher, but slightly. I think a lot of Girgensons' key attributes and key contributions to the Tampa Bay Lightning team don't really show up in the stat sheet. Did have a -7, but he played all 82 games for Tampa Bay, contributing 2 goals and 4 assists. The defense was certainly a solid component of his play, but he was definitely a guy that I think completely overlooked. And the defensive aspects of his game are something that are quite solid and keeps him in the NHL year in, year out. And, he's not just some guy on there to fill a roster. He's a guy that can really contribute on the defensive side of things for Tampa Bay. I still don't think he's a key player by any means on this Lightning team, but he's just a solid fourth line winger that, makes a decent defensive contribution. So definitely a little bit higher than, kind of how overlooked that I had him at the beginning of the season. And Luke Glendening, I didn't realize still had so much left in the tank. Definitely higher on him. And he's someone that even at 35, the Lightning should definitely consider bringing back for another NHL season. I think his tenacity on the ice really defies his age of 35, which makes Glendening one of the older players on the Tampa Bay Lightning team. But his face-off skills are still very much there, still a solid defender. And when he puts a puck in the net, the Lightning usually win. Well, always win. 13 wins in 13 games where Luke Glendening has scored a goal for Tampa Bay. So he's definitely someone that I am higher on coming from this season. And Cam Atkinson is going to be the next one. Which is kind of a tougher one to adjudicate, because as just a person, he just seems like a really good clubhouse guy and just a good dude. Like overall, really brightens up the locker room, provides some light, some humor. But I think I had a bit too high expectations of how he'd perform on the ice this season for the Tampa Bay Lightning. One of the players that is on an expiring contract and a guy that I'm not sure the Lightning are going to bring back. He was really played out of the lineup by March and played in fewer than 40 games in his lone season for the Tampa Bay Lightning so far this year. So with Atkinson, I'm going a little bit lower on, unfortunately. Though I have the highest regard for him as a player in person. Just he he didn't make as big contributions as you'd expect to the Tampa Bay Lightning team. Definitely was a locker room presence on the ice, though. Just was kind of out of the lineup by the end of the season, and he's someone that might have played his last NHL game. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to go a little bit lower on Cam Atkinson, as good of a guy as I think that he is. Now for the goaltenders, Andrei Vasilevskiy. I don't even know how I'm going to say higher on this one, because I already thought the world of him. Vasilevskiy has been a goalie that I've admired really since he entered the NHL. I think he's the best goalie on the planet right now. And, last season it was a tough start for the Lightning with him injured. I was able to get to his first game back, and the Lightning won by 6 goals in the 2023-24 season. Part of it was because Vazzy made some great saves, and I was continued to be blown away by his net minding prowess all season long. So I don't think I could have gone too much higher on him over the season. I can't say lower, though, so I'm going to stay high on Andrei Vasilevskiy. I think he is well-deserving of a Vezina finalist, well-deserving of a Vezina trophy. Whether or not he wins it this year, he's still the first goalie that I would pick if I had the privilege to be choosing an NHL team. He'd be the first goaltender off the board for me. Vazzy, I think, is the best goalie in the world, and it's hard for me to go lower on him. And Jonas Johansson, I'm even to go a little bit higher on. It's kind of in the middle with him, because you want to go higher on him because he is a lot bigger part of this Lightning team than being a Vasilevskiy's backup, I think, would suggest. But, he's come in some important games and played really well for the Tampa Bay Lightning. But then there's certainly been some times where he's in the net and you're just wishing that it was Andrei Vasilevskiy instead. I mean, I think that is fair with just about anyone, just with the skill of Vasilevskiy compared to the rest of the league. But Johansson definitely plays a bigger role in this Lightning team than I initially thought, and I think is a really solid backup goalie. And Tampa Bay, I rewarded that with his contract in the offseason. But now with the emergence of Harrison Mennigan, he'll have 1 year left on his entry-level deal when Jonas Johansson's current contract expires. This might be the last contract we see Jonas Johansson signing with the Tampa Bay Lightning, as we discussed earlier in the week when talking about Harrison Mennigan's contract. So I'm going to go a little bit higher on Jonas Johansson. Definitely kind of completes one of the more solid goalie rooms in the NHL. Hard to top Andrei Vasilevskiy as the number one netminder, but Jonas Johansson, I think, makes a lot bigger impact on this Tampa Bay Lightning team than I had originally thought. So I'm going to go a little bit higher on Johansson here as well. And I've been going that way on most of these Tampa Bay Lightning players, but this is a team that, top to bottom really impressed me with the talent that they had. And, you just can't help but wondering what could have been with a healthier team at the start of the postseason. But sometimes I guess that's just the way the cookie crumbles, and that's just the way the season goes. And that's the way the episode is going to finish for today. Once again, I'm Josh Sperber, thanking all of you for tuning in and making Locked On Lightning your first listen today. Now, for your second listen, make sure to check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night, until the Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find the NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Wherever you found this podcast, I want to thank you. Please give us a like, a follow, and a subscribe. We do really appreciate your support because we do the show for you, the loyal Locked On Lightning fans. So thank you for being fans. Thank you for watching, listening, tuning in, however you did. And please enjoy the rest of your Thursday. We'll talk some more Lightning off-season musings tomorrow when we return on Locked On Lightning.